Okay guys, today we're going to be covering Roman society. So it'll be shorter than the last PowerPoint. So a question you might have is, if Rome ended in 476, how do we still know about it? The ways that we know about Rome, first of all, the Romans wrote a lot of stuff down. I mean, they wrote down everything. They had the diaries that they wrote into. They kept records of everything. They literally wrote everything they could think of down. Kind of like now how people put everything they can think of on Twitter or Facebook or whatever. It's kind of like that. The Romans also built a ton of stuff. Building things was like crack to the Romans. If they weren't building, they weren't happy. So we can look at the stuff they built and figure out quite a bit about them based on that. The Romans also loved art, and you can learn a lot about a culture from their art. The Romans wrote a lot of plays, they made a lot of music, they put paintings on the ceilings, they put paintings on the walls, they used little colored tiles to make mosaics on the floor. They, I mean, you name it, and they made it for art. A lot of it still survived to today, so we can learn a lot about a culture through that. While the Romans kind of disappear, the Muslims who lived in the Middle East don't. They're going to learn a lot about the Romans. They're going to keep a lot of Roman technology, a lot of Roman information, things like that. And later, when people start wanting to learn about Rome, we can be taught through the Muslims about what was Rome like, what they think, what they value. Two big sources of information are also the cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum. These are cities that were buried by volcanoes. A whole bunch of rocks came flying down, then the ash came down, and they were just completely covered and actually forgotten about for quite a long time. The Romans didn't really know what a volcano was or that it was dangerous, and so in these cities, when the water started tasting funny and the earth kept shaking and smoke was coming out of the mountain, they didn't know they should run. So when these things exploded, people were trapped inside the city. A few years back, the Science Museum had a traveling display that came about Pompeii. And they brought in all sorts of stuff that you could see and pictures, and today, if you wanted to, you could go visit Pompeii if you have the money and you can fly over there. In these cities, in Pompeii and Herculaneum, everything is really well preserved. I mean, you can see the clothes that people were wearing, you could see the collars the dogs had, you could see jewelry, you can see people pulling shirts up over their face because they're choking on the ash. There's a poster that was up on a wall that's still preserved that is a political poster. Vote for me, here's why, and here's why you shouldn't vote for so-and-so. Buildings that were in the middle of being built. So we've learned a lot based on the people we found, the animals we found, all that stuff. And you should be getting a Pompeii reading, which will explain a little bit more about Pompeii. But these are some of the sources that we use to get information. Of course, there's other things like oral tradition and whatnot. But when Rome falls, people in Europe tend to get really, really stupid. But we'll talk about that during the Middle Ages. Alright, the Republic of Rome. In your reading, we covered what republic was, or is. It's basically like a democracy. It's... And in the reading you got to go along with this PowerPoint, you've got a reading about Julius Caesar. When he takes over, the Republic pretty much ends. So Republic Rome is before that. And some of this goes along with the reading we already had. Alright, so in Rome there were three classes. You've got the slaves, obviously at the bottom. The plebeians, some people call them plebeians, I don't care. They're the poor people. And the patricians. They're the rich people. Thanks to the Constitution, the rich people and the poor people had the same freedoms, the same rights. Just like we have in this country right now. In most societies, poor people tend to be treated better than, or rich people tend to be treated better than poor people. And in Rome, it was still the same way. But the law still applied to both. Slaves, what's there to say? They're slaves, you know, they're treated as property. But in Rome, there was a tradition. When a slave owner dies, usually he or she would free their slaves. They might put it in their will, or they might say it as they're dying. It's during the Republic that women start to earn some rights in Rome. Now, I say some because it was still perfectly legal. If you found a woman, you know, like wandering through the countryside, it was still perfectly legal to rape her in Rome. But it wouldn't be legal to rape a guy who's wandering through the countryside all by himself. So they won't be equal, but women will get some rights. Some women will be allowed to take part in the government, and some women, or pretty much all women, will be allowed to own property. It used to be if a husband died and he had no sons, his wife would have to move out of the house because she was not allowed to own the house. Now, during the end of the Republic, women are allowed to own a house, so they don't have to leave. It's during the Republic that Rome starts to grow quite a bit. We get a lot of expansion happening. And during the time of expansion, the rich are going to get richer, and the poor are actually going to get poorer. As they expand, they start getting all this new land that they take from other people. They don't give the land to the plebeians. They give the land to the patricians. So the people who are already rich get more land so they can make more money. In addition to taking land, they also conquer a lot of people and make most of them slaves. Now the rich people have a ton of slaves. And if you think about it, if you're a rich person and you were paying someone to farm for you, you were paying someone to clean your house for you, you were paying someone to babysit your kids, cook your food, all that stuff. Now you have 20 slaves. Why would you pay someone to do all that work for you when you could just have your slave do it? So during the expansion, we're going to see a lot of these poor people lose their jobs, lose their farms, things like that, to the new slaves. It's at this time the rich start building huge houses too. Later on in the PowerPoint, I'll show you kind of like a blueprint of what one of those houses might look like. Some of these houses were so big that they had gardens inside with trees and lots of flowers and everything like that, plus indoor pools, plus multiple rooms, plus all, you know, anything they could want, so they don't really have to leave their house if they don't want to. Alright, so let's look at it after the Republic. So after Julius Caesar dies, and in your reading you learn that he gets stabbed by just about everybody. And after Augustus, or under Augustus, you're going to see Rome really just super expand. This map down in the corner shows you the Roman Empire under Augustus and after Augustus. As you can see, it's freaking huge. Northern Africa, almost all of Europe, a big chunk of the Middle East. And Rome, like I said, they love to build. They're going to build roads that connect everything. And not winding roads, but they were known for their straight roads. They'd cut off the tops of mountains. They'd drill holes through mountains. They would build up ditches so that the road doesn't sink way down. They liked straight roads. And their roads are going to connect the world. Along the roads are also going to be guards to make sure it's safe. Between that and the sea travel, the world is going to be connected. And by the world, I mean the world of the Mediterranean. Northern Africa, Middle East, and Europe. That's what they thought the world was. So the world is connected. And what this means is, if you lived in England, which is in the northern part of the map here, Great Britain, the island there, England. You live in England, you could buy anything you want, really. You could buy a mummy from Egypt. You could buy a giraffe. You could buy an elephant from India. Whatever you want, pretty much, you could buy it. You could get it. Might take a long time, but you could get it. This is the first time in world history that you could buy anything you want and actually, buy it and get it. And when Rome falls, it's really not going to happen again until after World War II. You might even argue it's not going to happen again until the internet, when people can go on eBay or whatnot. So it's a pretty big deal. I mean, imagine living in Denmark, which wasn't quite part of the Roman Empire, and having a giraffe as a pet and a bunch of hyenas. Yeah, that's a cold climate. They've never even seen those things. Sea trade is also going to be very popular in the Mediterranean. Obviously, it's a lot faster to send a boat from Egypt to Rome than it is to go by land. And when you have a lot of valuable things going on boat, you're going to have a lot of pirates, people who want to steal from those boats. The Roman military is going to make sure that they have boats out there protecting the Mediterranean Sea. They find a pirate, they'll kill him. It's pretty much that simple. So for the most part, the pirates in the Mediterranean are going to stop during Roman times. It's at this time that art, architecture, history, writing, religion, trade, cultures, you name it start exchanging like never before. In the Hellenistic era of Greece, you saw that Egypt, Greece, and Persia are going to mix together to create the Hellenistic culture. Now we're going to see, the Celts, the Iberians, the Egyptians, the Persians, the Greeks, you name it. All those people who live in that orange area of the map, all blending together, learning from each other, having access to each other's religion, each other's stories, their art, their whatever they make, pottery, blankets, rugs, whatever. And it's going to be the first time that we start to see kind of a global culture. And we won't really see a global culture again until after World War II, when people start coming back to different countries saying, oh, here's what I found, here's what I saw. This is really cool fashion. We should start selling this here. Let's talk a little bit more about the poor. Huge differences between the rich and the poor. I said the rich will keep getting richer and the poor will keep getting poorer. And in the Roman Empire, there will be major differences. We're talking the differences between Bill Gates and me. Huge differences. Most of the poor in the Roman Empire are going to rely on welfare. The government helping them pay their bills. The government helping them buy food. The government paying for their apartment rent, like Section 8 and welfare and food stamps. And despite all this, the poor still have to pay taxes. So they get money from the government, and then they have to give back some of that money as taxes. The poor who had kind of the Section 8 where the government pays for their housing, they tend to live in very, very tiny apartments. And you'd have an entire family. Might be 4 people, might be 20 people, all living in like a one-bedroom apartment with no toilet, no bathroom in the apartment. You'd be lucky if there's a full kind of a kitchen area in the apartment. There might be a bathroom on the floor So, and what I mean by that is, if you know, first floor, maybe you have 20 apartments. There might be one bathroom for all 20 apartments to share. So if you think it's bad right now, sharing a bathroom at home with your brothers and sisters and whatnot, imagine sharing one bathroom with 20 different families. So you might imagine poor people be a little unhappy, right? And the Roman people, the rich people, the people in charge, they knew that if people are unhappy, the large masses of poor plebeians are unhappy, we might have a revolution. So they said, okay, how can we get people happy? Well, one option is we spend a lot of money, we get them better housing, better food, get them all jobs, give them all education, and then they'll be happier. Okay, that's one option. It's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take a lot of time. And the Romans said, well, that idea kind of sucks. What else could we do? So to keep people happy, they started providing free entertainment. Free plays. Free chariot races, which is their version of NASCAR. Free battles at the Colosseum. You can go and watch the gladiators kill each other. You can go watch them feed people to lions in the Colosseum. You can go see all this stuff for free. And then at these events, a lot of times they give out free food. So not only do you get to see a show for free, but you're getting free bread to eat. So this tended to keep people a lot happier. If you can distract people and entertain them, they'll often forget about the things that make them unhappy. I say that this is a big reason why we had the government of Minnesota spending all this money on a new Viking stadium. I mean, you think about it, the government of Minnesota borrowed money from schools. They didn't have enough money to pay for your education and run the government. But at the same time, they decided to spend, what was it, $500 million, $500 million on a new Viking stadium. And there's a reason why. If people are entertained, they're distracted. If they're distracted and entertained, they won't be focusing on the things that are making them unhappy as much. You could spend that money, that $500 million on education, getting people smarter, getting them better trained so they could have better jobs. But that takes time, takes a lot of money, takes a lot of effort, so we get the distraction of entertainment. Don't get me wrong, I like the Vikings. And I'm looking forward to seeing them playing in the new stadium. But there you go. So here's what a theater would look like. They'd have all the seats there, and they'd have a permanent structure for them to perform on. They'd be outside, so if it's raining, and they might cancel the play, or you're sitting in the rain watching the play. But then again, Packers fans will sit out in the rain and the snow and watch the Packers play, so nothing too unusual there. Chariot races. There's a picture of a famous movie called Ben-Hur. Like I said, it's basically NASCAR, only with horses and chariots. There's a modern-day picture of the Colosseum. Just to give you an idea how big it is, you can see the houses in the background. This thing was huge. It was so big that they could fill it up with water and have boats in there do naval battles. So they could have 6, 7, 8 boats fighting each other in there, and everyone sitting down watching. That's how big this place is. They also had a retractable roof. So if it's raining, you put the roof up and everyone inside stays dry. If it's a nice day, you take the roof off and you got plenty of sunlight in there. So this thing is huge. And had better technology, I think, than our Metrodome did. So there you go. Inside there, you might see gladiators fighting animals. These strange animals that the Greeks weren't familiar with. Rhinos, lions, tigers, hyenas. different animals that they hadn't seen before. So it's kind of like going to the zoo, but a lot more violent. Some of the weapons the gladiators used: swords, these spears, the three-headed spear called a trident, maces, whatnot. But usually what you wanted to see was a gladiator fighting another gladiator. At the end of this PowerPoint, I got a couple of videos for you to watch. One is about 3 minutes, I believe, and one is less than a minute. And they'll explain more about gladiators. So here's what the Colosseum looked like with the roof up. See, they said in the center of the roof there's a little hole for light to come through, and you can see the boats actually fighting. They had aqueducts set up, so it was just with the pull of a lever, the whole place fills up with water. And then pull of a different lever, all the water drains out. Pretty cool, I think. And just like with the gladiators fighting gladiators, the whole idea here is you fight to the death on these boats. Alright, let's talk about the rich. When we're talking about the Greeks, the reading you had, talked about the Epicureans. These are people who live for pleasure. And in Rome, Epicurean delights, we're talking food pleasure, was a big thing. So think about going to Old Country Buffet. This is kind of something that the Romans did. They would go to an all-you-can-eat buffet. But this buffet would last maybe 8 hours. You'd be there all day. This would be your fun activity for the day. You would go out and there'd be maybe 40 kinds of cakes sitting on a table. And you would eat a piece of one cake, and then you try a piece of another, and you're just going through trying all these cakes. Then when you get full, besides a bathroom, they had another special room called a vomitorium. And in this vomitorium are a bunch of feathers. You would take one of those feathers, shove it down your throat, and it would cause you to throw up everything you just ate. Once you've thrown up, you go back out and you eat some more. Then you go back, you throw up, you go back, you eat some more. And you keep doing this cycle for like 6 hours, 8 hours. The point is you're not eating for the food, you're eating for the pleasure. By the way, today we call this binge and purge. Binge being you eat like crazy, purge being you get rid of the food. But as we know now, it's very, very unhealthy. The stomach acid, when you throw up, it dissolves your throat and it can lead to some serious problems. It can destroy your teeth as well. But the Romans thought it was a fun activity. I just get the picture in my head right now of 40 people all sitting in the vomitorium going, doesn't sound like that much fun to me, but whatever. Physical delights. The painting in the lower corner of the two people, you'll notice I got a bar over one of the pictures. Yeah, that's a guy grabbing a woman. They had physical delight buildings, prostitution houses. So if you had some money, you could go to the prostitution house, pay a prostitute, whether it be male or female, and you know. They also had a bunch of restaurants. In the middle of the screen, over on the right-hand side, you see that there's this counter with a whole bunch of circles in it, holes in it. This is from a restaurant in Pompeii. You would get your food, and just like a restaurant now, you get served, you get a plate full of food, and you're eating your food. When you're all done, that's the trash hole. You just dump your food right down there. Someone else comes up, sits down when you're done, and eats, and then they dump their trash down the hole. So restaurants were quite popular, but only the rich could really afford to go to the restaurants. They had public baths. If you look, the bottom 3 pictures are all for public baths. These were like spas. They had kind of like a sauna room. They had baths where you just sit around in the warm water because they had heated indoor plumbing. sit around the warm water talking to each other and joking, telling gossip, and it'd be fun. They did segregate, though, so you wouldn't have guys and girls together. But that would be an idea of fun. You'd probably get a massage while you were there, get some perfume, just have like a relaxing, pampering kind of a day. And freaky large houses. Like I said before, huge, and I'll show you a picture of that, I believe, on the next slide. And the rich people, they had all this stuff to spend their money on, and they paid almost no taxes. So all these paintings you see, these were all paintings from Pompeii. Up on the left-hand corner, there's presumably a husband and a wife who had themselves painted inside their house. Below that was the painting on the outside of the Giggity house. We got the next to that one, you've got a bunch of people playing music, just sitting around listening to music for fun. Then the next three on the bottom, those were all for the spa. We got the restaurant. And then in the upper right-hand corner is a mosaic, a bunch of little colored stones put together of a woman. And this was on the floor in one of the rooms in her house. But it's showing her reading and writing, which is something else they did for fun. They might sit around and read the Iliad or the Odyssey, although more likely they would read something called the Aeneid. Alright, here's kind of like a little blueprint of a rich person's house. In the very front, starting where it says shop, the right-hand corner here. So you might have a business, I don't know what it is, selling shoes, selling jewelry, whatever. You'd often have the shop in the front of your house. That way you could keep an eye on your stuff while you're at home. The vestibule, that's just kind of the entryway. And a lot of times you'd have one of your slaves sleeping in the doorway. They acted kind of like a security alarm. Someone wanted to break in your house, that slave's going to wake up and start screaming. Or maybe you got a dog, I don't know. Then we got the main entryway here. There's an indoor pool, that's what the blue thing in the center is. We've got a room with a mosaic floor, and then there's the bed chamber, and the latrines. Latrines means bathroom. Why you have the bathroom right next to the kitchen, that's kind of gross, but whatever. Next to the kitchen there, you got the dining room. Outside the dining room, they have their own indoor garden with additional rooms and additional fun stuff around the garden. We got a second story to this house. They've got paintings on the wall. They got these tiled roofs. You can just kind of take a look at this. I mean, this is a big freaking house. And sometimes that pool wasn't actually a pool. It was just kind of a shallow looking. You look in your reflection on the water. So it's for looking into. But it might also be a pond for fish or whatever you want to put in there. It's your house. Yeah. Here's a drawing of the inside of this particular house. You can see there's the pool right there, and you can see how fancy the indoor was. There's a skylight so that sunlight comes right down onto that pool, and then rainwater could fill it up as well, I suppose, if there's no glass. Here's the mosaic. In that one room, it's in mosaic. We've got some peacocks and other birds. This is all made with little individual stones that are colored, assembled together to make this pattern. And this is just something to walk on. This was the see the dining room or the kitchen. I can't remember which off the top of my head right now. But you can see paintings of people. You can see a fireplace built into the wall there. All the mosaics on the wall. And obviously a high ceiling. There's another mosaic that was in this place. And here's a painting that was in the dining room, I believe. It was a painting of food. Kind of hard to tell exactly what food it is. Clams, maybe? I'm not sure. But the Romans didn't view art quite the same way we do. You might have a painting and think, wow, this is a great painting. And you give it to your kids when you die, and they give it to their kids, and maybe it's worth a lot of money. Their paintings might change from week to week. You got a painting, you get bored with it, you give it away, you throw it away, whatever, and you get a new one. They didn't see their paintings as being all that valuable, unless maybe it was a painting of a god, or a painting of your family, or something like that. Alright, some basic info. Some of this was in your reading and it's a review, some of it's new. Generally speaking, the oldest male had the power. That might be dad, that might be grandpa, that might be the oldest son. Sometimes the Romans, if they needed money, would sell some of their kids as slaves. That way they could go out to eat at a restaurant a little more, go to the Vomitorium some more, whatever they're doing. Maybe they got gambling debts, so they sell their kids to pay. The oldest male also controls all the money and all the property. Generally speaking, women only own property if there's no oldest male, or if the oldest male is a little kid, a little boy. Then they would own things until the boy is old enough to take over. The oldest male is responsible for making sure every daughter gets married. Now, he'd often have to set this up, or he would approve this if the girl had a guy that she liked and he liked her. And if there was a wedding present, oftentimes when a guy would marry a girl, the parents of the girl would give something to the guy. Now, I know in Hmong culture, I believe you tend to give something to the parents of the girl. This was different. The parents of the girl gave something to the boy. If you're the oldest male, it's your job to make sure you get that. And if no one wants to marry one of these daughters or sisters or whatever, then you had to make sure that what you were giving was valuable enough so someone greedy would be willing to marry the girl. The oldest male had all the power. He could punish people, he could banish people, he could divorce his wife, he could even kill his wife. So banish being kicking her out of the city, stuff like that. And marriage, generally speaking, girls would get married between the ages of 12 and 15, and they'd be married to guys late 20s all the way up to their 50s. So they tend to marry guys much, much older. Check out these video clips. The first one is a little bit of a documentary on some of the different gladiators. And so you can see kind of what they look like, their different weapons. There were different types of gladiators. Each one had a skill, and they worked for years. The other one is a very short clip from a modern TV show showing kind of how Hollywood likes to make gladiators look fancy and exciting and bloody and gory. So it's a little different than what you'd see. Any questions, just bring them to class and ask.